Welcome everyone. Also, everyone who is watching or listening this afterwards. This is the fourth session of our warming up program before the Build Weekend, which starts this weekend. After a session with No Code Live with Kieran about ideation and validation, a session with Kat about tool selection, and a session with Lee about how to prepare for the Build Weekend. We finished this program with Kevon Cheung, well known on Twitter about building in public, but also launched his new book about how to find joy in chaos. So we are really glad to have you here, Kevon. Love to hear more about your book and all your experiences. So great you are here to share this with us and to help us prepare a little bit more before we are going to build in public and finding joy during the Build Weekend on Twitter. So great to have you here, and curious to learn more from you.
No, thank you so much for inviting me, Harold. Like I first got into the no code community because Max invited me last year, so I'm always like having fun and around this community. Today, I actually won't talk so much about my book because that is about Twitter presence, and I can go on for like hours. But I thought today I could give you guys the framework of building in public, because that's gonna be most applicable, practical for you as you go into this weekend. But yeah, very excited to be here. Let me share my screen. You can all see my screen, right? Okay, so this is usually my workshop kind of welcome slide with a timer, and then I have a bit of dance move here. So Harold was right, like it's 11 p.m. here. I'm sitting in Hong Kong. I used to study in the States, but to be very honest, these days I just enjoy the internet so much. Like I find my tribe there. So I just hang out with people online instead of offline. If you can leave your camera on, stay muted, that would be great for everyone else and great for me as well. So it's 11 p.m. So I'm actually a bit sleepy before this workshop. If you catch me sleeping, then you can shake your body and I'll be awake. But now if you can join me to like kind of shake our body a little bit just to wake myself up, that would be great. Come on, Toga. All right, so now I have your attention. Thanks for the introduction, Harold. I thought it would be good for me to kind of introduce myself because you're going to be listening to me for like 60 minutes. Like, who is this guy? I actually have been a full-time creator for 20 months now, and it has been like a roller coaster ride, just like any entrepreneur. But today, I created a brand and a business called Public Lab, where I just share with people how to build in public, how to get heard online, how to build a community around your work. And then I created a course called Build in Public Mastery. So we actually just finished cohort 4. And I usually run my cohort at this time. So I'm used to this, staying up late kind of thing. So it's completely okay for me. And 2 months ago, I also launched my book, Find Joy in Chaos. But I'm the kind of guy that talks about building in public, making Twitter friends, enjoying your Twitter time, all kinds of stuff like that. So we can chat more about that later. But I just want to give you a big picture of like 20 months ago. Who was the Kevon 20 months ago at the end of 2020? My background was actually startup. For 8 to 9 years before 2020, I was pretty much the jack of all trades. Like I do everything in startups, including renovating the toilet, including we used to do kids coding education. So including issuing the invoice to parents. I'm just like the handyman for everything. But one important event happened at the end of 2020. And that was I walked away from the startup Toasty, as you can see in the image. I walked away from it because it wasn't growing. And I was kind of spending a lot of the investor money, and I thought it doesn't make sense. But the key event there was that when I walked away, I looked back at the 8 to 9 years of my career, and I felt like a nobody, because I don't know if you guys resonate with this. I'm the kind of person that I put out all my work. I work really hard, but for the company, I either work in or co-create, and nothing is under the name Kevon Cheung. If you like Google Kevon Cheung, it's like, who the hell is this person? So I was really frustrated. Like, I worked so hard, but I had nothing. So I didn't know what to do at that point. And my baby girl was, coming to this world around the same time. So I thought to myself, okay, maybe I'll take a little break and figure something out. And everything started changing because of the concept of building in public. And the things that you see what I'm doing right now, public lab, all the courses and books, is all because of building in public. So here I am sharing the exact, stories so that maybe you can do the same for yourself. I'm assuming a lot of you are quite early stage, but if you're later stage, maybe you can take some ideas and inspiration as well. So Harold and I talk about this. Like we thought, okay, maybe some of you are looking to grow on Twitter. So if you stay till the end, we're going to do like a lucky draw and 2 people would get my book for free. So if you want that, stay till the end. But today I'm just here to tell you stories today. I don't have a lot of like crazy frameworks to share. So I thought stories are a bit more fun for you to listen to, and then you can pick out the snippets that actually work for you as well. So the first story is actually how I got started. As I mentioned to you, I walked away from the startup and I felt like a nobody. So the first thing I did was, okay, maybe I can try writing online. So if you look at this is actually my personal website. I never really write anything on it except for some reviews. But starting November 2020, you can see going up, each week I would write 1 article. And I write based on what I'm curious about, what I just learned, what I've reflected back in time, For example, validate your startup idea. That was a big failure for me. So yeah, I started writing online. But after 8 weeks, I was like, shit. Like each article, I was able to get like 30 people to read it, maybe 40 people if I push it hard on Twitter, indie hackers. That's not good. Like I can just foresee myself not having any success if I keep going at this rate. So after 8 weeks, which is like Jan 2021, I decided, hey, Kevon, if you really want to do this, if you really want to make this work, you have to build something so valuable that people would share with their friends. For example, Kat here, read it, and then Kat would send to Harold, Harold would send to Toga, something like that. And, as an entrepreneur who failed multiple times in the past, I want to be a bit more strategic this time. So on the left-hand side, you can see I research a lot of ideas, and you can see build in public, micro SaaS, audience first, no code. These were really hot topics on the internet. And funny story, I almost picked no code as my topic because it was so happening. Like there's a community around it, people want to learn about it, and you can look at the Google search traffic. It seems to be the topic to go to. But then I saw build in public, which has 0 to 10 search volume in the US, which means nobody care about it. But then I thought to myself, like, oh my God, like build in public is actually my life principle. The concept of like sharing your journey, being honest, being transparent is exactly who I am. So when I think about, can I talk about no code for like 10 years? It's very hard, honestly. But can I talk about building in public for 10 years? And I'm like, yeah, I can, because this is who I am. Okay, so I didn't care about what Google told me, but I actually started digging around the internet. And on the right-hand side here, you can see my Notion page. I pretty much jot down everything I can find about the topic build in public. And I learned all about it. So this is where the build in public stuff starts coming in. I had like maybe 200 followers at that point, and it's all by just making friends and talking to people. I had no niche, I had no topic, no one knows me. And I thought, okay, if I want to talk about building in public and create a project around it, which is like a 9-chapter guide, I should really do it in public. Otherwise, like people wouldn't trust me for it. So I started taking whatever I'm doing and consolidate it into a tweet or a thread and put it out there. So you can see here the date is Jan 8, 2021. The first thread I put out, which is I'm researching this, no one cared because I have like 200 followers and only 6 likes. So it is quite slow and frustrating. But then I post another one because I know it's going to take time. So I just keep going, right? The second one got 4 likes. So frustrating. So I kept going. And then until at one point I was like, hey, who wants to be a beta reader? I have wrote maybe 5,000 words. Who wants to read it? And a lot of people, not a lot, sorry, maybe like 8 people raised their hand. And I was like, holy shit. Like from no one knows me to now 8 people wants to help out. What changes the whole thing? And reflecting back, I was like, it's because I keep showing up with my work and people know that I'm serious about this. I didn't just like hire an intern to write it. I actually sit here every single day to write it. So later on, when I have my part 2 done, I ask again and another 9 or 10 people raised their hand. So that was my first aha moment of building in public. It's like, oh my God, these people never liked my thread, but when I ask, they show up. So this is kind of like a concept of online relationships or online credibility. People are watching you. So for example, when you first share during the weekend or even now, your new project, at the start, no one cares about you. But as you share more and they can pick up some value, people actually would jump in to help. That's something that's really hard to explain until you try it yourself. So here is the lesson learned from my stories at this point, which is building in public is really good for getting early feedback. Like me, I'm just writing, but I can get beta readers to come in and they would point out like all the areas that they enjoy or they don't enjoy, and I can make the product better. And it's also really good to kick off relationships. Like all these beta readers, I get them to help me out, but I also thank them, and then I get to meet them all in a very intimate way. And eventually, all these people keep following my journey, and they become my raving friends and fans. So it's never like you launch something and people are like crazy about your work. It's never like that. It's like they watch me build it step by step, and then they become part of it. So that was like the biggest lesson for me. So let's keep going a little bit here. After building in public, the building in public guide for like 2 months. Yeah, I was new to writing online, so it took me 2 months to write 10,000 words. But when I finally launched it, something amazing happened. Like, of course, I try really hard to push it, but because of all the people who I kind of surround myself with or interact with in that 8 weeks, and then I get them to help me out, this launch suddenly becomes like crazily huge, like 354 likes and then 30 replies. I've never experienced something like that in my life, actually. And my Twitter followers like doubled down over like 2 days or something. That month I got like 500 followers because of this launch. And then like 2,000 people read it in the first 3 days. So this is not really to brag like how successful this is, but I think the key learning is especially on the internet, is never really just launch it and just sit here and wait. Because I've done that in my previous SaaS. I put it on Product Hunt, and then I actually wake up at 2 a.m. I just sit here thinking that people are going to flood into the product and wants to talk to me, and it never happened. So this time around, I kind of create that community along the way and get their help as well. And that was just really game changing for me. So the second lesson I want to share with you here is like building in public, like for your new project coming up. Don't be frustrated at the start. Like you're planting the seeds. People are watching, and it takes weeks for people to really understand what you do. But pay attention to each relationship and note down their name, maybe on a Google Sheet or something. When they get enough value following your journey, you can actually reach out to them and say, hey, I'm launching this. Can you help me out? So this is, just really helpful. So now I cut the story short because I want to leave time for us to do Q&A. But now that was the starting point of my journey. And because of that, I was like, building public is so powerful if you know how to use it. And now everything I do, I make sure that I always share my work in public. So I want to tell you the second story, which is actually the creation of my book, Find Joy in Chaos. I want to share some examples of my tweets so that you get a sense of like, oh, okay, I didn't know I can talk about my product this way. Maybe your product is a SaaS product, no code, right? But mine is an info product. But I think, you can just kind of get inspired that way. Okay, first thing first is this is September 2021. So I had this idea like, I want to write a book. And I actually only have like a rough structure of the book. You can see that the name is even different. I just came up with a random name and I don't care. I just put it out there because I know like only a few people are going to see this tweet anyway. But the next time I do it, I make sure that, hey, I have a lot of success looping people in early in the product creation cycle, right? What if I do it again? So this time I already have a sizable following because of my previous work. So I asked, hey, is there 10 people who can do a live call with me and we're going to read the table of content together? So I actually block out time in 2 days and do all these like 1 hour call. And once I finish that, another building public tweet would be, hey, I schedule all these calls with these amazing people. And then another tweet would be, hey, thank you so much. Like these people help me out big times. And then as I keep going, I started talking about, okay, I have this concept that we shouldn't focus on follower count on Twitter. But, a lot of times we only have one kind of perspective in our head. And when you create a product, if it's only for you, that's not good, right? So Twitter is a perfect platform for you to kind of hear more perspective. So for me, I'm like, hey, like, why do people focus on follower count so much? I just put it out there and then people would reply. And then now I have all this knowledge to improve my book on. And then I keep sharing different kinds of updates. For example, I actually paused the book for 4 months because I was busy with the course. And I update people on why was that? Like what happened in my life? I even get my daughter to draw the beta readers. So someone recommend that and I put it out there and I update my audience. Hey, we're drawing the first round beta readers. So all these like little snippets, they are not going to be game changing as one tweet, but they are game changing when you look back and look at it as a kind of like a roadmap, like a timeline. And one thing that I really recommend you guys to do is screenshots. On Twitter, it's usually text-based, but if you're building meaningful work, you really want to take a screenshot and then have a few lines to explain it because it's visual and it's facts. People love to see facts. So as I keep going, there are different ways to build in public. I also share photos. People love to see that you're not just creating digitally. Like if you can take a photo of you working really hard with like whiteboard, post it, people love that because they can see the tangibles of your journey. And don't be afraid to ask. I think a lot of people mistaken building in public as like, oh, I just share my updates and then people are just going to listen to me. I think that's just part one. Part two is actually involving the people around you, just like how I did it with the beta readers. So oftentimes I would just like throw out questions. Hey, I have this idea for 8 more videos in my book here in the middle. Can you tell me which video is hot and which video is not attractive? And you know what? Like 20, 25 people replied, and I cut out the least attractive ones. So they are making my product better because I share it in public. So I actually did a bunch of update until the launch date, and that was good. I built up all the momentum for the launch. So the lesson learned here is, when you're sharing your learnings and journey, it might feel quite directionless at that moment. Like, why am I sharing this? What's the point of it? But if you kind of connect that to your launch goal, you will start seeing that all this trust, all these relationships, all these conversations are going to help your product to be successful down the road, because, people run business. So if you get yourself a community of people to help you push it, you're going to do much better. So I'm going to share some real numbers with you, being really vulnerable. So for this book, Find Joy in Chaos, I think the last couple of weeks I made like 4K. It's not like crazy, but as a small creator, it's pretty good. So I want to highlight the different period. Like this yellow box here is highlighting my pre-launch. So that was the period where I was actively building in public. I was telling people what I was working on because I'm so close to launch. And I think every 2 days I build in public, right? And that period was doing quite well. Like people pre-order my book. So as you can see here, the more you talk about your product in different angles, not very salesy, but somehow it leads to sales. And that's the magical thing about building in public. And then the second phase is the launch, and obviously gather so much momentum and get people to help me out. And there was a spike for the launch, is pretty expected. And then the post-launch, which is the last 1 month, I didn't do any shit about the book because I was so busy with my course, and you can see everything die down. So this is also the reality of building in public. It's really, a concept of marketing. People are not gonna try your product or buy your product when they first see it. They kind of need to see it more than 7 times so that they know, oh, okay, the product is shaping up. Oh, okay, Harold is talking about the product. Like they need all these like little touch points, and then they will be like, oh, I need this product. So this is why you should build in public and play the long game, because it's gonna be kind of slow but quite steady as well. I think this is the last point I want to share with you. Like a couple weeks ago, this is a magazine from MailChimp, and they reached out and they said they want to interview me to put me in the magazine. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So another benefit of building in public is when you start showing more of your work out there, first thing first, more people will know you, but you're kind of expanding your service area on the internet, and amazing things start to happen. Like some guy from the UK office of MailChimp saw my building public guide and then reached out to me, and then that leads to me writing paid articles for them. It's just crazy, and it's something we cannot control, but what we can control is just putting more stuff out there and expand our service area. So this is the last part of the talk. And Harold asked me, hey, Kevon, can you give some tips for these no-code builders for the next weekend? And I looked it up, like you guys are going to build something in 48 hours. I think my personal advice would be, if you can share 5 building public tweets in that 48 hours, I think that would be pretty good. Like, it's definitely more than usual, but you have a tight time frame, right? The tip I have for you is try to, even though you are the one building the product, try to make each tweet, or I don't know where you're building in public, like maybe LinkedIn or Instagram, try to make it not about you. Like even though you're building it, try to kind of frame each tweet, each sharing as something that people can learn from you. So I'll give you 5 examples here. So if you need ideas what to do this weekend, maybe you can look at this list. So let's go down one by one. The first question you can ask is like, why this idea? Why should you be the one do it? And how will you approach it? That can be a really nice tweet and nice thread. That would be the first one you put out. I know the first workshop was on validation. So maybe you can talk about what have you done to validate this idea? What are some facts from the research? What are some pain points people tell you about in the conversations? You can share those as well, so people can read it and be like, oh, I'm learning validation from Ravish, something like that. Third point is a real photo of you working. I think it's good to mix it up, so it's not always text-based. So just take a photo of you like working really hard on your product. Number 4 is let's be a bit vulnerable, because when you're vulnerable, it actually draws people in to want to connect with you, to want to help you. So you can actually say, maybe you're doing something with the database and you can ask people, hey, how do I do this in the database? And just open it up and invite people to help you. And then the last point that I would give you is, usually building in public is really good when you make a decision and you kind of explain yourself how you come to that decision making, and then you post it out. This is so good because, you know, most entrepreneurs or most people, we are there to learn. So if we can read into your mind about how you make that decision, I like you already. I don't care what product you're building, but at least I like you as a person and I pay more attention to you. So these are the 5 ideas. I'm sure you'll see the slides or the videos. You can come back to this. And final slide here, just some crazy tips for you when you think about showing your work, building in public. I think this event, the Build Weekend, is amazing. And I think you can all leverage the community power, because if you are all building in public, talking about it, more people will know Build Weekend, and you're essentially like a little army building a lot of buzz and exposure for this, and it eventually will come back to you, right? So I think you should definitely leverage on that. Usually building public is a long-term thing, so I always don't recommend my students to like go really hard on 1 or 2 days, because it's not about going really hard. But for this weekend, I think you have the permission to go really hard and bombard your followers if you have some already, because they understand you're in a Build Weekend event. I know a lot of people, when they first get into building in public, they're like, oh, I'm just going to share my to-do list today. Oh, I'm just going to share like what I finished today. Don't do that, because when you do that, you're writing from your perspective and no one cares about what you just finished. That's not the point about showing your work. The point about showing your work is you want to help someone out there while you're building this. So it has to be a learning, a realization, a screenshot. And when that person read it, they should feel really good about it and they get to know you at the same time. One kind of mistake I see a lot of people make is they use the word you a lot in their tweets. So they would say something like, you have to show up every day because consistency is key. I call that wisdom bombs. It's like, everyone can say that. It's nothing special. But when you write your build in public tweets, you should use a bit more I. Like, I disappear for 2 weeks and I realize everything starts to fall apart. So this is why I think consistency is key. Like when you add the I to the language, it becomes your own story and no one can kind of replicate that. You're super unique in your own story. And use more emotions in your sharing. I know we're not very used to typing online or something, but when you don't actually write out your emotions, like I'm frustrated or I had a really bad day, if you don't write it out, people don't know. And emotions add a lot of like power to the story. It pulls people in to say, oh, Jacob is having a bad day. what is this about? I want to read more about it. So yeah, you can Google like 7 emotions in writing, and you'll find a lot of ways to use it. Okay, last final tip before we do Q&A. As I mentioned, in this 48 hours, you're probably moving really fast, just building things. But I think you should still get people involved in the process. Even though you have to kind of move on, you can still kind of open up like a question, like, this is the design of the landing page. Is there something that you see? Is there something you don't like on this landing page? Getting feedback from people, asking them questions. But there's a rule to that, the 10-second rule. Every time you ask a question on a public platform like Twitter, they need to be able to answer it in 10 seconds. I see sometimes like people ask questions like, hey, what's your biggest struggle in the last few weeks? This kind of question, people don't reply because it's so hard to come up with an answer. So they just maybe they click like and then they move on. So you don't get the reply you want. So make it super easy for people to share their responses, the 10-second rule. So I hope that is helpful. The stories, the lesson learned, the tips. We can do some questions if you guys have some.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Kevon. I see Rafiz already holding his hand up, so go ahead, Rafiz. Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. It was really good to listen to you speak up all about build in public. Along the presentation, I had a lot of questions, but I think the one that stuck was, I want to know how much time each day you spend, building the content for your tweets while you are building in public.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a skill, right? It get easier over time. So when you're starting out, when you don't really know what can be a shareable stories, it would take more time. So for example, you would need to ask yourself maybe 6 p.m. every day, what did I learn today that can help someone else out there? That's a good question I recommend anyone starting to use, because this question has 2 parts. One is you're reflecting your own learnings, but you're also thinking about the angle of helping someone. So the question is, what did I learn today that can benefit someone out there? So if you think about like this, it might take you 20 minutes every day or 30 minutes every day to write just one build in public tweet. But if you get to my point where, basically everything I do, I can make it a build in public tweet these days. So it's as easy as, I'm doing the calendar. Let me take a screenshot and write 2 lines. And that is 10 seconds. So it takes time to practice, but it's going to take more time, but quite easy once you pick it up.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Yeah, Lee, there's also some questions. You are building in public a lot, you are doing a lot of sprints, half-day builds and stuff. So yeah, I can imagine this interesting topic for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. It follows on from Ravish's question, really, because you said, Kevin, that you find yourself, all day you've got all these things that you could share when you're building and working. Do you ever find sometimes that you're in the middle of working and you get distracted by the thought of, I must tweet this? Because that sometimes happens to me, and then I lose my flow on what I'm working on. How do you kind of balance that, I guess?
Oh, that's a really, really good question, because a lot of people ask me about content creation. Building public is content creation, right? And usually I say, if you want to say something and you go on Twitter to say it right away, it is doing a few things in your brain at the same time. You're doing ideation, you're doing writing, and then you're doing editing. So it's not good to do so much at the same time. let alone when you go on Twitter, usually you're distracted and you start reading tweets instead of writing tweets. So my way is, when you have that idea, find yourself like a Notion database or a piece of paper, anywhere that can document your thoughts. Like, just write down about 10 words what that thought is. For example, Lee, you might be thinking, oh, I have a conversation with this person and I want to talk about it in public. Just write that down, and then don't go into writing the tweet right away. But, maybe pick one time out of the week to look at that list and turn it into like 4 or 5 tweets and then schedule it. That will kind of not distract your real work, but also make it more systematic. So it's easier over time too. Yeah. So I actually have a blog post to detail my content creation process. Let me put it in the chat. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, that answered it exactly. That's great. That's really good. I like that a lot. The idea of documenting it and scheduling it for later. Great. It's great.
Yeah. Oh, I have another tip.
It's what I try to do, but the way you've said it, it makes me want to, do more of it. Because like you say, you go to tweet it and then you read someone else's tweet and the idea's gone and you've stopped your work.
Yeah.
Go on, sorry,
another
go on.
Tip,
you said you had yeah, go on.
Yeah, and I have another tip, because I assume most of you are working on SaaS, right? Because of no code. Think about a few things that you can just take a screenshot, and that could be another idea bank. We talk about writing things down, right? But screenshot is a great, flashback to what you were doing before. So for me, I'm a creator. So sometimes, when my Twitter follower hit a certain count, I take a screenshot. I don't know how to use it, but I take a screenshot first and put it in a folder, because I know one day I can use it. Another example would be, I sent out a newsletter to like maybe 3,000 people. That success message, if you close it, it's gone forever. So I always take a screenshot first, put it on the desktop, and I'll find it useful next week. So the idea is, just take a lot of screenshots, and then when you need to create that content, just go dig the one that you want to pick.
Do you try and organize, like have a place where you save it all into the same kind of folder or bucket, so you know where to go look for them, kind of thing?
So I like to keep things simple. So it's just the desktop, and then there's a screenshot folder. I don't want the desktop to be messy, so over time I just drag things in. But I do have another folder where, it's marketing worthy kind of screenshots. Then I pull it over there. That's it. Right. One is raw, one is marketable. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about building in public and sharing on Twitter, I really have to get into it, get used to it. So at a certain point, you have to let go your fears or something, or your scrungy, is that the word? You have to go more out to get more outgoing. What was the time that you felt comfortable with it? How did you? Was it just naturally for you, or did you have to? Was there some kind of thresholds that you have to step over for yourself first?
Yeah, so this is definitely your life journey. Like, ever since I was young, I have always been quite vulnerable. Like, I don't know why, but I'm really okay telling people I suck at this, or I'm okay telling people I make this mistake. But I know this is different for every person. So one way I try to tell my students that they can try to overcome this is that when you post something on Twitter, just imagine yourself in a cinema or something, and reserve the first row for critics. Like, you just expect people to come in and hate on your tweets. You expect it. And then when you publish it and then you wait for a few hours, if nothing happens, then you're like, oh, okay, I expect them to come, but they didn't come. So when you kind of reframe your mindset this way, then your fear tends to go down. Yeah. But if you're like always questioning whether you should put this out or not, that's too much time wasted in thinking about it. Yeah. So the tips is reserve the seat for the critics. Yeah.
It's a great one. Yeah. Yeah. And at one point, then you have to just shake off this whole trepidation, or just go with it. And when you tweet more, when you do more, you get used to it and get comfortable. And this is a great example. If you expect some critics, then it's okay if they come because you anticipated on it. Yeah. Yeah, great one. Thanks for sharing.
And I, from my experience, I think 99% of the time people are nice. It's only 1% of the time people are like picking a fight or something, and I usually just ignore them, because if you ignore them, they ignore you too. So nothing will happen.
Yeah. Great. I know, Kat, you are also sharing on Twitter and been active there and trying to build in public. What are your experiences so far? And is there anything you can
I don't really have a product, so I'm more building in public about what I'm learning in no code and some freelance stuff I'm doing, some side projects that I'm working on, like my newsletter. But I'm a little bit doubting now, because first I was more active in the no code indie hacker community, but now I'm tweeting a lot about my newsletter and now how I'm trying to grow it and stuff like that. But I wonder if this will maybe be not as interesting to my followers because it's a different subject.
Is that a question to me? I guess it is.
Sorry. Yeah. So my question is, did you always focus on one topic? So it's always been relevant to your followers, right?
I guess so. But actually, I actually get asked this question multiple times before, and I think one thing we need to understand is like your voice on perhaps Twitter, it is your voice. It's not a project's voice. So whatever you're doing, it should follow you there. Like if you are not doing no code and now you're doing newsletter, that's like 100% of your attention. You shouldn't feel bad of that, or if someone doesn't like the newsletter stuff, they would unfollow you. You know, it's kind of like a natural selection. People come and go. So the first thing to have success online is really to follow your heart. Like if you're passionate about what you talk about, people can feel it. And yeah, it's okay. Like I have people unfollowing me. I don't track it, but I'm sure people unfollow me every day. People unsubscribe my emails every day. It's just life.
Yeah, I shouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, but I understand, like in the beginning, I had that fear in the beginning because the numbers are so small. Yeah. So like I had maybe 200 newsletter subscriber, and then each email I sent out, like 3 people unsubscribe, and I'm like, oh no, that's a lot of people. But yeah, just hang on to it. When the numbers are bigger, you don't feel it anymore.
Yeah, Lee also added a question in the chat about building public process depending on which product you launch, if I interpret your question right, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of related to what I found interesting what Kat was just saying. But I'd like to know, Kevon, your approach, because you mentioned your book. How did you decide that was the product or thing you were going to launch? And also attached to that, I mean, I assume there's a building public process to that, but also then how do you avoid, other things you might be getting ideas about and not getting into those when you're trying to focus on that particular launch, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because ideas are everywhere and there's so many of them. I think ever since I discovered, having a voice online and building public, I shift my way of building things. It used to be like I imagine something I want to build, and then I try to build based on that imagination. But now I don't. I just pretend that I'm the dumbest person in the room, and I keep asking people, like, what are your thoughts? What are you doing? What are you struggling with? And when you do that day in and day out, sometimes I put out a tweet and I notice people are really struggling with meeting the right people online. So many people say that, and I take notes of that, in my Notion page. And over time, when enough people say the same thing, I tend to gear towards building something for that. And it's actually not just for Twitter. Sometimes in my newsletter, because, my followers start to grow, then in newsletter, I would ask them, hey, if you filled in this survey telling me your top challenge, I would pick one person to give this thing away for free. So like a lot of people actually tell me what they're struggling with. So I think it's about asking. It's about asking and asking and asking, and then collecting the data and then analyzing them. That's kind of the secret sauce, not so secret sauce. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. But there are tons of distraction. Especially like info product is so easy to create. It's like you want to create so many things. But at the end of the day, like one thing I'm working on, because I'm 20 months into this business, it is like things have to map together. You don't want to have scattered values everywhere. Like this product should lead people to this product, should lead people to this product. That's when you grow fast, when they're all interconnected.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, and then it keeps showing up like you mentioned. So that's I think that's also one thing, Lee, you mentioned in your talk about after prepared to keep building after the build weekend. So I think that aligns with the two talks of you both. Yeah. I'm looking at Tolga, Jacob, Nicholas. Do you have any? You are also signed up for the build weekend. Do you have anything on your mind that could help you?
Yeah, Harold. Thanks for the talk. I was wondering if do you think these principles are also applicable for a strategy to grow the audience for your project, not for you? Because I'm my understanding is that you are growing your own audience so that it is easier for you to sell your products. But do you think it also works for growing your project's audience, not necessarily yours?
So the brand, the company, I think honestly, generally it's harder because people follow people want to connect with people. If you have like a brand account sharing the company process or like some decisions or some pictures, chances are people like it. Like you have a very authentic brand to the company, but it's still really hard to say, oh, I want to follow this, I don't know, the tally form. I want to follow tally form, but I don't know who's sharing all those stories. Like it's a bit harder. So this is also why, like, if you look around Twitter space, most building public people, they are using their personal name to have a very strong voice. And then because they're working on their project or the SaaS like 100% of the time, they keep talking about it. So the traffic will flow to the person and right away flow to the project. Unless you say, I have someone who told me like I have like 5-6 different companies, what should I talk about? I don't have a good answer for that, but I recommend them to pick one to focus on, because you cannot be talking about 5, 6 different things. So I think that's a decision you have to make. But one more thing I want to tell you is that building your personal brand or personal voice is something that will stick with you for a lifetime. Nicholas, if you don't want to work on this project and you work on the second project and you build in public and you gain trust from Lee, Toga, Ravish, and me, we will follow you to the next project. So whatever project you work on, you already have our support. And that's the beauty of it, I think. So also consider this perspective as well.
Thank you. Yes, makes sense. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question, Nicholas. Right. Well, I'm mindful of everyone's time, and Kevin and Jacob especially. I know it's late, very late in the evening at your place. So before we wrap up, I would like to go to the raffle.
Yay!
So, yeah, because like Kevin mentioned, he launched a book, a great book. And like he promised, there are two to win here. So we created this wheel, the picker wheel. Great tool Kevin sent to me this afternoon. I enjoyed it already. You can all see my screen now. Yeah, all right. So let me prepare.
We're picking two, right?
Yeah, we're picking two.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I will give it a go for the first spin. There we go. Look, everyone.
Oh!
Ravis! All right, congrats, Ravis. Let me take a quick screenshot from it. If you celebrate, yeah, all right, Ravis won this one, and we are doing another one. And I'm sure I don't. Yeah, there we go. All right, the next round. Here we go for the second book. Good luck.
Oh,
No,
same.
That doesn't count. Well, I said we was mindful of the time, but maybe we are spending here another hour. So we'll see.
Let's try one more time.
That's one more time. All right. Look. Toga.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. All right, I'll contact Harold and see how I can send it to you.
Yeah, that's great. It's a nice read, so yeah, I'm sure you enjoy. I'm not sure. Yeah, the Toga, you are spending some free time, I think, in your new country. And Rafi's, yeah, I hope you have some time to read it as well. Congrats with it. I stopped sharing this. Yeah, thanks everyone from joining this session. It's the last warm-up session before our build weekend. I think there were some really valuable insights and some great actionable tips you shared, Kevon. So thanks a lot for joining us. This weekend, our build weekend starts at 5 p.m. your own time. So it's yeah, the time zones differ. So your own time, you can start 5 p.m. start building. And yeah, bring your ID to live in 48 hours. So until Sunday afternoon, 5 p.m., your own time. Doesn't matter if it's a big project you want to work on or just something small or something fun. Everything is great. It's about practicing to build. And yeah, we will have fun on Twitter, of course. So Kevon, if you're up to that in the weekend, you can check how everyone is doing building in public. And so yeah, make sure to follow us there. And we'll try to apply everything you shared, as well as everything as Lee shared, Kat shared, and Kieran shared. So I think this will be fun. If anyone is watching this back later on and you didn't sign up for the build weekend yet, make sure you do this on 100daysofnocode.com/build-weekend. Hope to see you all. You will get the emails from Max, and we will have a great build weekend there. So hope to see you there.